All right. Hello, good afternoon, Friday, April 15th. This is Low Code Campfire, episode number 46. We don't have a predefined topic today, but I suspect we'll be talking some about the new release, version 1.20, and there has been some items submitted in advance, so we can get into those as well. But before we do that, let me introduce myself. I am Dale Warner, Head of Support for Plant an App. This is the Low Code Campfire, where we get together to talk about the challenges and experiences related to low code, and it's an all skill levels welcome event. We have all the previous episodes recorded, so that's on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/plantanapp. The QR code is there, and it's also in all the emails we send you to invite you to Campfire, so you can get to that channel, subscribe, and get all the previous episodes. This event we do weekly, and it's pretty informal. We run it in a meeting format, so we get to say anyone that shows up can talk, and we run roughly around this agenda where we do a first call, whatever might be difficult and burning and on your mind, something we can help with. But then we can also talk about our common Campfire website, feature requests, topics that get submitted in advance. So jump in, participate. Oh, and I forgot to mention, we do Afterglow. So after we go for an hour or so, we'll stop recording. And if there's if you want to hang around after and just to participate in the casual conversation, you're invited to do that as well. So only guideline we have is if you would be courteous and mute if you have noise going on in the background that keeps the conversation moving. You can submit questions and topics in advance, and as I said, we had some of those for this week, so we'll bring those up as we go. And with that, I would love to say hello and welcome. I see a lot of regular faces today and a few new ones.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everybody.
Yes.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. Not morning for all of us.
That's correct.
Morning, everyone from Australia.
Sir?
Morning from Australia.
Morning. Yeah. So you're very dedicated to be showing up to this event, or in bad need of help. I don't know which it is.
Just wanted to catch up.
Great. Well, glad you're with us. All right. So first call. Who's got something that we want to bring up first?
Oh, I got something.
Yes, sir.
I put a screenshot in the chat. I don't know if you can see it.
Let's see what we got here. It downloaded for me.
Okay. And I'm struggling a bit with duplicates. If you see the screenshot, you see all the entities or a number of entities. One is group, and they are duplicate. So every action. I wonder if somebody saw that already. Ah, you shared it. That's fine. Yeah. So I have an entity is called group, and I got create group, duplicate group types. Well, everything is double.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure how that happened, and if I can do. I think something screws up in the database or something like that. So
I actually, okay, there's just a couple things going on. I think, Peter, one is that these scripts are created by the entity builder. So when you create entities, it creates the related scripts, the various actions so that you can do them. And they exist on the file system. And I don't know off the top of my head where on the file system they are.
No, but I can find them then.
Yes, and they're going to be, I'm almost certain, let's see, they're going to be JSON files, I believe. And we could find them if we took a minute. But there's a couple of things. So not only do you have this issue, but then on the other one that you submitted on the help desk where you had create new user, I'm 99% certain that we eliminated that as an action that we release as part of the product, because it wasn't intended that developers would work with the user's database through our actions. And so we eliminated those back in version 117, and I believe it's 117. Again, we're still not 100% on this, but I believe this is what's going on. So you have some configuration files on your system that didn't get deleted, possibly because a migration script didn't run. And so those, again, like on a fresh version 1.20, you wouldn't have create new user, and yet you have.
Okay.
So I think something didn't run. We're going to get to the bottom of that, and I actually have something that we might even be something we can look at when we get.
Okay, well, I can, if you say they're on files, so then I can find them. So.
Yes, and so I think, and then the ones that are being generated, it'd be safe to delete them, and then when you resave the entity, it's going to regenerate them.
Ah, yeah, okay.
So probably in the case where you've got these duplicates, as I suspect, always do a backup, right, before you delete something. But yeah, I think if you delete them and then just resave the group entity, it's going to come back for you.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. What else is first call?
Dale, can I ask a clarifying question? Because
Yes,
I don't think that I caught on to that. Tell me again about removing the create user. Is that used to be an action that we could stack in?
There was a create new user action. Be interested if anybody looking on their current systems. I don't see it. I think we removed it. I think we removed it in 117.
I've got that in several of my websites. That I use that.
I do too. Am I to understand that this is now gone?
Okay.
No, there are two create users. This one was the one related to the user entity, and the other is related to the system user. So if you add a user, a DNN user, you can do that, of course. But this one was a custom entity from Planton app, and that had also, in my situation, a create new user. So I had two actions, and I stumbled upon the first one, and that was creating problems because I was not allowed to create a new user. So I went to the rabbit hole, and 2 hours later, I found, okay, there's something wrong here.
So I think it would be in this entities section, we had this create new whatever, and what is it? There's register.
User registration at the bottom.
Right. I think this is the one that lets you create a user.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what I'm using. That's still there then, huh?
Yeah, that's the correct one. Yes.
And that's the one that we intend. But our entity, which shows up in, if we take a look at entities, user, there's these system entities that we provide. There's a few others, and this is the one where we at one point had released the create new and partially update, and yet we didn't give you permissions to use them. So I think we pulled them back. They were not intended for your use.
Okay, thank you. I am less concerned. I think the user registration is what I'm using, and you scared me there for a minute, but yeah, that looks fine to me.
Okay. Ben, you said perhaps you were Were you using create new user or user registration?
No, I've always used the user registration. It's just, again, I think same thing like with Mark. I was just concerned because, when the term came out and saying that create new user was
Yeah.
now no longer there, I was like, wait a minute, because
What-
I do use that, but I'm understanding it differently. I was just understanding the idea behind it, not the actual exact name. But yes, registration of a new user is what I'm using. I wasn't using the entities, method of creating a record, basically.
Yeah. And I'm going to go back and see if I can. We have all our old versions here and see if this was the one. It wasn't here. All right, sorry. I'm playing while we're talking, so I'm going to see if I can find it. But I think we had it at one point, so we'll take a look at that. So sorry for causing panic, but for people who we're going to get to the bottom of why it wasn't removed. We have some issues where things where migration scripts don't run in some odd cases, and so we're trying to get to the bottom of that. I suspect that was the problem. So here we are, 116. Let's see if this is the one. Otherwise, I'll quit looking.
I found it. I'm using I don't even know what version this is. Where's the version number? I'm using an old version on a site of mine, and I see it here where there's a create user or create new user, delete user. So I do see it here.
Probably partially update user, all these different.
Yeah.
And I think some of our other system entities would fall into that same category. Let's see if we can find some other system entities. What comes in a system? So image, I think, is probably another one. But in any case, it looks like we pulled them back after version 116. And when you tried to use them, it wouldn't work because you don't have the right permissions. So it was just, as Peter pointed out, he wasted 2 hours on it, and this is why we're trying to pull it back. But it was a configuration file, and it had all the properties of.
Yes, exactly. What is missing here is the password.
Right, and
therefore I say, well, there's something fishy here because I need password.
Right, absolutely. All right.
Well, if anyone's interested, on a side note, I posted up that dash card information and usage on the Campfire. So if anyone's interested.
That, and you did it as a new contribution. Perfect. So we've talked about that.
That's real nice, Ben.
But let's look at it. So these, we have this, we have very close, we have dashboards that have cards that look like this. You created this to look like those. Is that correct, Ben?
Yes, that is correct. I basically tried to mimic the look and feel of the existing dash cards, but these are token based, so they can be inserted anywhere. They can be put in action forms in any location. They could be put in your grids. They can be put even in HTML modules, as long as you check off the replace tokens option. And because it's a token, you can give it any value you want. So it could be, a return value from an API call. It could be a return value from a SQL call, whatever it is.
When I played with it on mine, and I didn't ended up solving it, the ability to make it clickable, actionable. I see you've got that documented, but I tried it and couldn't get it to work. I attribute it to my mediocre JavaScript skills. Do you mind if I try and make this clickable?
Sure, go ahead.
So it's this here is an example of what,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so if we look at your custom dashboard, that one. So you would just add an on-click parameter. Is that like that?
Yeah, correct.
So I'm going to save that and give it a try.
You may have to move the parentheses.
You guys are just professionally getting to correct me these days. That's all. Move the parentheses.
Yeah, before on click, that you close the parameters. Yeah, so I go at the end after the last question. Quote.
Equals.
I'll have to take a look at that.
Okay, how about I put it back the way you had it, and I think it would just be tremendously valuable. That looks right now, doesn't it? Somebody help me. We'll give it a try. Okay, back to rendering. I think it'd be tremendously helpful because it's the possibility to make these actionable when you show a dashboard and you can click on it, and whether that's a drill down or sending you off to be able to work with the data that's in there. I think it's a tremendously useful feature. So cool, that's a great contribution. All right. Last call on first call. What's going on? Any other?
My question is just on the new grids and the styling. You had the custom templates on the previous versions, but not on the new version yet.
So I did post an answer. I don't know if it was very useful to you on your question in community forum about it's driven by Bootstrap 5. Did you see that answer? Okay.
Yeah.
It's our intention to put together a low-code cafe on that, but there's some tools that we point you to that generates the CSS that'll help you. That should help you to style those, and it should be easier than what we had previously because of the tools that are out there. Did you take a look at those, and did that get you any closer?
I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but I'll get onto that.
Okay, well, that's part of the thing that because I mean, I think that's part of why we picked Bootstrap 5. There are a lot of resources out there, and when it's Bogdan that pointed me in the right direction on this one. There were two different sites, and I'm sure there's many that would let you style almost everything having to do with the forms and the listings, and it really happens pretty quickly, but I think there's some knowledge that needs to be transferred. So we'll, like I say, we'll do a low-code cafe episode on that coming up.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea, Dale.
Good. All right.
Quick question, Dale.
Yes, please.
Campfire configuration page down. We can't get to it. I'm getting a dependency error and saying I can't do anything because I'm not an administrator.
And so here we are, I am. So let's get this taken care of. We are, we're doing some work around in this area. It's a great time to talk about it. I think we realized that we missed the mark with regard to this missing dependencies issue here in this last release, because there's things like this where you were locked out of being able to get into configuration because there were missing dependencies. So we're working on changing our definition for this so that we want to make sure that we don't, for example, force somebody who is working in a production environment to install dependencies without having tested them, or forcing you to do it at all, unless it's just a horrendous problem. So the direction that we're going more towards will be to when there's dependencies like this, that we will alert you to them, and even some of them will be recommended and you might have to snooze them, but we're going to get away from having to push those out, and enforcing that you take them. Can you confirm, Ben, you should be able to get in there now? So that's something that the product team is working on to make sure that that process makes more sense. We're kind of looking at it in a holistic view, because we have all these various environments that, you know, are internal development, alpha, beta, and then production, and we want to be able to force those to go out and internally at the right time to make sure that everybody is working on the latest and greatest. But we certainly don't want to impact production, and our standpoint is going to be to not release those, not force them to release. Okay, did that resolve for you? And thank you, Peter, you found them. Good deal. So on version 1.20, we just had a ticket come up, and from somebody that couldn't get into the form, the administrative, manage of a form to be able to change their form, and that was happened to be talking to a developer at the time, and got his attention very quickly. There's a folder called No CSS that we probably should have deleted, or should have been deleted. If it's not deleted on your system, it will cause this issue where you can't edit a form. So if you encounter that, we can get to it very quickly. I could probably find and show you the ticket, the exact procedure here. Let me find it. Has anybody encountered that, or anything else critical in 120 so far? You guys have beta tested a lot of this. So.
Yeah, I had a lot of issue with upgrade. I don't know if it was to do with how many forms and grids that I had in the site, which needed all those icons updated with. I think it timed out my server a couple of times.
Oh, actually during the upgrade, it timed out.
Yeah, had a bit of fun.
So how did you resolve on that?
I think it just finally worked for me. Yeah, I know I've got over 2,000 forms, grids, and tabs on the site. So there's a few of those glyphons that would have had to be converted over to Font Awesome.
So this was the one that I was talking about. This folder here, and I'll put that again on the chat.
Yeah, I had that occur in one of the upgrades as well.
And did you find
Yeah,
it?
deleting it fixed it up.
Yep. Good.
I also wanted to let everyone know that in the latest version, we have removed that issue that you were having where all the glyph icons were being converted to Font Awesome. So the way we left it off in the final release version is if you have existing glyph icons, they'll remain, but you cannot add any new ones. And if you go to edit those, it will tell you that you need to change them to Font Awesome icons.
That sounds great. That's a good way to handle it, I think. I noticed that in Bogdan's email when he announced that 2.0 was available. He said, I'll read it down to the bottom, and I did, and it was in there. Yep. Ben, that should make you happier. I know you use those glyph icons a lot.
As soon as I can unmute. Yeah, I use them everywhere. So at least I'm not going to see those big fat dots. But yeah, I'll probably end up creating my own script to convert them all because I really don't want to have to go through every grid and manually do that.
We, I think it was in a cafe that I converted the community site, and I see I still have some of those to clean up as well. So it's for those of us who converted on an earlier version, it's kind of annoying. But the glory of beta testing, right? Okay. All right, so Ben, you got your hand up still? Or is that a still or again? Great. So there were some let's see, there was an issue that again, this was a migration script. Did we talk about this last week? I don't think so. Okay. Stop me, somebody, if I did. I don't think I did. We've had a couple of you that had issues with the new users and pages. So, for example, in of course, I've timed down now. We've converted the users and the pages to be Bootstrap 5, and they're actually done in low code now and not as part of the product. So it's forms and grids, forms and listings rather than directly coded into the product, which is great. Patrick did the work to make these happen. And so there was an issue with, yeah, I swear I did this last week. So that's
You did.
Yeah, okay, so I won't do it again. But
The only thing I would add to that, though, Dale, is on my installation, because it's been around through several versions, the pages that you wanted me to delete weren't there. They were on, because we had over time had multiple client and app installations, and I had to go find them and remove them from there where they originally got installed.
oh yes, and that brings up at least one issue I wanted to talk about now, which is just we highly recommend and only support having one copy of the app builder module loaded on your site. If you have multiples, you're going to get into oddities. It may feel like it's working, but there'll be things that pop up. So if you have multiple app builders installed, we recommend that you, or rather placed onto your site. It should only be installed once, but multiple instances, it should only have one. And then we recommend that you have it on a page called configuration at the root of the site. Some of our migration scripts currently rely on the idea that that, I mean, that's our official placement of the thing. So if you have it placed somewhere else, you might have certain migration scripts that fail. I don't want to get too far ahead, but I have it for the product team to talk about whether we should be keeping that as a requirement, or support it wherever you happen to place it. But at the moment, best recommendation is to have it as a page called configuration, and then only have one of them.
So Dale, you had shared that with me because I was having a problem a little while ago, but I didn't remember that you had said that it needs to be on the root of the site.
Yes.
That a little vote here that's going to mess up my menu across the top of my page. That's going to make it wider than it should be. I would prefer to put it somewhere underneath some other menu item. If I
Yep.
had to vote. I don't know that I do.
And we have other people that have been dealing with that as well, and I don't want to say any names, Jim Anthony, but wanting it to be voting that to be able to place it wherever you want it. So that's something that I will bring up to the product team and see if there's any way that we can get around that. Otherwise, currently the assumption is that it's a configuration page. Just let you know what I know.
How serious is that, Dale? Because I think I could easily say that that's not my situation on any of my sites so far. Like I've moved it every time.
Mm-hmm.
How much trouble am I? And I don't know.
The only word that I have from development is that it's part of that is used in some migration scripts. So, but I don't know the level of severity.
Okay, thank you.
Would it be possible to hide it from the menu? You have it in the root, call it configuration, but just have the show in menu option switched off, and would it still work?
Yeah, as far as I know, it absolutely would.
Yeah, so you could have another page in a more convenient location in the hierarchy, which acts as a link to that one that's not in the menu, not in the menu.
Yes.
That's a great idea, Jim.
I'll wait till something breaks to do it, but that will be a way around it when something breaks.
Yeah. And unfortunately, what breaks is the migration scripts, and there are not I don't believe that you're going to see a report unless you dig down into the logs to say that something didn't happen. So those tend to pop out later, like what we saw earlier with Peter, where he still has create new user. So yep, I'm just going to go with that's our official recommendation, and it's a great idea to hide the page. So we had a couple of questions submitted in advance, and I believe, yeah, Florin, you're on the call. These ones coming up are from you, and this question had to do with using common delimited, and what do you do with them once you collect something? So, I mean, if I understand your question correctly, it had to do with you have a grid and you've got root buttons to be able to pick out which ones are selected, which is a great choice. But then what do we do with them? So one thing you can do with them is to turn them into rows so that you can iterate over them. For example, I've got SQL console here. This SQL select, if you put your token that has the items in there as part of the using string split, you'll get the individual values, and then you can process them.
Okay.
And in that, sometimes, I mean, this is I think part of the challenge of low code is trying to figure out, what's the approach? Is there an action that I should be looking for that'll loop through them? This, for example, using this kind of I went out and Googled for turning a comma delimited list into rows using SQL and found this article from Microsoft. I'll pop that on the chat as well. So, is it in the product? Is it something that you can do like with SQL? That's part of the challenge. Where is it? And in this case, one of the things, for example, that you could do would be to use this SQL and load it into a list, and then it's very easy to iterate over a list.
Yeah, sure. Once you have the list, everything is easy.
Yep. So load list from SQL.
If you don't mind, I just want to make a caveat to that. That solution only works if you have 2016 and above for SQL. That is a 2016 plus command only. So if you're less than SQL 2016, you will not be able to use that feature. There is a built-in feature on DNN, convert list to table, does exactly the same thing, but it's a stored procedure. It'll work on any version of SQL that you're running.
Okay. Convert list to table. That's a good one. If you happen to have that handy and can pop it into the chat, that would be terrific. Don't want to put you on the spot, but convert list to table. That's a good. The other thing, again, if you start doing this kind of a note for myself, if you start doing that same SQL search that I was talking about, you'll also find people who have written stored procedures that, I mean, actually using the one that's within DNN makes more sense, but there's other solutions that are offered there as well. So can be done there. I know I've another possibility is to use I know I have in the past wrote a SQL function that would let you pull out one element at a time from one of these, and so you could do something. I'm a VB guy, right? So you could do a for next loop through this and pull them out in a loop. But again, pulling them into a list is probably the best.
I'll try this thing and I'll let you know.
Perfect.
I just posted the built-in DNN function for SQL into the chat. So again, that's a DNN function. So just having DNN installed will, give you access to that ability to use that.
And there it is. It works just perfectly. So either one of these two answers, depending on one of these two answers will work for you. How about that?
I've used that first one quite a lot. That was set up for me. That works quite well into entity list.
And Ben, if we haven't said it before, it's always great to have you on the call. All right, so another one, and Florin, I just grabbed these and bringing them forward and using the brain trust here to answer them. I haven't figured this one out yet, so we'll just read it together. An app with a button that is going to run some JavaScript, and it's the app is not executing all the lines, having an issue with math. And so just at the surface, this feels like something is blowing up. Have you looking in the inspect console to see if there are errors?
Well, sometimes it's working and it gives me the result, but with no other intervention. In other cases, it doesn't work.
For the same data or different data?
Yeah, for the same.
Interesting. Well,
I don't know how. Sorry, I don't know when where we put it, the JavaScript. It's said put some JavaScript. This sum means that cannot be a specific number of item, or I don't know. Maybe I wrote too many.
yeah, not that I'm aware of. I don't know that. I mean, I don't know that there is an upper limit. But again, I would expect that when it's failing, that there will be something in the console that will point to the problem.
Nothing appear in the console.
Speaking from experience, just to give an idea, I mean, I don't know if you've already done this. Typically, I've seen situations like that happen when you may think you're running the same exact code, but there is one maybe particular parameter that has a different value. That value is causing your script to crash. You may not see an error in the console. If you do have a logic error in there based off of a parameter, your script will just fail without any console error, coming out. It's just going to halt and not do anything after where it encountered that error. The only way that I found to fix that, or not fix that, identify it, is I put alerts everywhere in my code to see how far I'm able to get before my alerts stop. And that will help me identify what line of code is causing the error. At that point, then you can really start looking at the logic of what are the values being used at that moment in time to determine what the problem is and why the Java code is crashing.
Okay.
So a technique that I've used before too is that you can put a console log, for example, at the top of the script that just outputs anything to the console, and then once that's happened, you can go to that in the inspect console and set debugging on for it, and then you can single step through the code. Does that sound familiar?
I think Radu gave us a presentation on that, or a demonstration one time of stepping through thanks to a console. So I want to add a couple more things, though, just possibilities. Like I think you mentioned you're doing a sum in your JavaScript. I think I would suggest that possibly the things you're summing may not be numbers. They might not know that they're numbers. They might think they're text. So you might need to parse.
No. I've done that. I've done this with the same number or value. One time it give me the result, other time no.
Okay.
You see, okay, in left is an exclamation mark that carry on with me on every line, and on if I wrote too many lines, it is right. There are too many error, but there is no error. It's just if there are few lines, everything is okay. But if I wrote too many,
Okay. Then the second idea may help, maybe. I have noticed that sometimes in my JavaScript, more often than I care to admit, there needs to be a little pause in the JavaScript somewhere in order for it to do something. And typically that's when it's trying to get a value from a multiple choice field. But there are other situations like that. So I have found judicious use of pausing the JavaScript while letting subcomponents or pre-components finish has oftentimes saved my butt. And by pause, I mean the little function called set timeout. Yeah, you might need to wait for something in order for it to get its value first.
Okay, hopefully, let's see if we do. So I've put a little script that has a console log at the top of it here. And so if I type something, it had both an alert and a console log, but this console log, when I click into the, it doesn't have to be that wide. When I click into the into this for a debugger, I can now see my script and set a breakpoint on something, so that when I run it again, now it stops here and lets me inspect the values and single step through it, which then lets you, if you're encountering the kind of problem that Ben and Mark have been talking about, we'll find out where it goes wrong. So does that technique make sense?
That's a nice trick, Dale. I
And
have to remember it.
yeah, and you can actually write debugger in your script, and it will open the debugger right there.
See, and I knew we could entice Bogdan to get into the conversation.
Yeah.
I'm going to take out my alert just to keep it all moving here. But, so we'll refresh. We'll type a character, and I guess you have to have the console open to make that go.
Yeah.
There it is. Yep. So the debugger, if the console is open, the debugger will just jump right in, and now you can follow along. And what do we got? Step into. So now we can see, for example, that X is 23, and you've got all kinds of scope. You can look for what you can inspect to try and find what the value of other things on the form are, for example. So, okay, good tip for the day, debugger. All right. So, Florin, hopefully with those techniques, you can find and see if there's something unusual that that you weren't able to spot, and maybe I'd love to hear what happened. Whether we were
Yep. I will let you know. Thank you.
Sure. So I think we got one more question from Florin, which is about adding a document in the app. And your question here, I want to have the option to take a picture or a scan. And so have you looked at the single file upload control in the form? Do you know that one, Florin? I shouldn't have closed my form down so quickly. There's a you can add a field type called single file upload, and this would be like picture or whatever you want to call it. But you configure this, and you can say you can limit it, for example, to a certain file type. Like if you're expecting a picture or a PDF, you can limit it that way. You can limit the file size, so if you want to have an upper limit on it. we can send it to a file, to a folder. So in this case, I'll call it temp. And if there are duplicates, it'll automatically generate a different name. And we'll call this pattern, file name pattern, test upload. You also have to have a button when you do this, by the way. So we'll add a button. It's just a submit button. And so and this picture outputs something. One of the, for example, the field name. Single file upload will output something called picture. So I think in my button we'll go ahead and output just so you can see potentially how you could use it. Put on an error message just to make it easy to display. And using append all fields, we'll get the text box, we'll get the picture, and we'll see what we get. So if I now refresh this, we have a picture. And of course, I don't have pictures.
You know, right there at this spot, if you're using a phone, which I think is part of Lauren's question, when it pops up and prompts you, Dale, I apologize, you're probably getting to that.
No, this is great.
It when it pops up and prompts you to get the picture on a phone, you can just you have options at the bottom of your screen. One of them is take the picture now. So you can essentially hit that upload button. It'll prompt you for the picture. You just put your phone up and you take the picture, then it uploads it right then and there. So you don't have to take the picture first. Pretty convenient.
And I'm just double checking. Yeah, this, if you use the QR code, you can get to this form and try it out and see if it works on your phone. But I believe you'll find that it does. It's expecting, we've limited it to JPEG, and so I didn't pick a JPEG. We'll have to pick a different file here if we can find it. There we go. One of my old cars. So submit that, and I want to reject. Well, there it is. Okay. So it's the picture ends up having the value of test upload during campfire.jpg, and if we go look for this, it's going to be in the site assets in the folder I asked. So we can get to it.
Just as a note, if anyone's using an app with a web view, you need to make sure you've got the permissions set on your web view app properly, otherwise you can't access your phone. This is from personal experience.
So now here this is on my site, and so you could use it for a variety of things. You can move it, you can email it there. So the answer to your question, Lauren, is single file or multi-file upload action. Field type will get you where you want to go. Great. Okay, that was the end of our prepared topics. We still have time for what else?
So what was that comment that Anthony just made about converting WebView to be able to use the app on the phone?
Yeah, I've got with the mobile app, ours uses it's a hybrid. So you've got the web view inside the app. So you could access the file upload button, but as soon as we went to use the camera, it would crash. So it was a hardware permissioning within the actual app to make sure you could use that feature of the web view.
So that's if you're doing an app. So
yeah,
your typical,
if it's just normal phone, it wasn't a problem. It was just if you're going through a web view on a mobile app, just got to make sure that permissioning is set correctly.
I'm not familiar with that term web view. What is that?
It's so that you can have your actual website displayed through a native app.
Through a native app. Okay.
Yeah, it's what I'm doing with my application.
Do you then have a native app that's operating similar to just a shell that holds your website?
Yeah, so that gives the token across to the site so I can do the push notifications. The button just selects which page of the site that I want. So then all control of the display of the application is actually through the site, not through the native app.
Can you tell me what app or shell you're using to put your website into?
It's the Revolution on the DNN store.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll see if I can get that.
Yeah, it's a guy called John working out of New York.
Mark, I'm not surprised you jump into that. I know you spent a lot of time on that previously.
Yeah, I'm doing it differently, but I was looking into what Anthony just described, and that would be a really good way to go if I can.
Well,
make it work.
it's a great way because I've got both Android and Apple apps at the same time.
Does that essentially make a progressive web app?
No, you've got a native shell and you just have your site display through the actual app itself.
That sounds really good.
So it'll load as a normal app button on the screen. You go to the App Store to download it. And then it allows the push notifications to be working through it with the Firebase actions of the Plantain app.
Wow.
And that's a module? The
Yep.
reflection is a module? Wow.
Yeah, but most of it, it's a there's not actually a thing on your site. He loads up a couple of little bits onto the back server to then be able to communicate and get authentication. But the rest of it for all the screen design is all through the app. It's all through your website.
Okay.
Anthony, I wouldn't put you on the spot, but if you're ever inclined to show it off, we would love to see it.
Nearly there. I'm just in the process of, this is where I'm changing the skin from Bootstrap 3 to a new Bootstrap 5 skin throughout the whole site.
Mhm.
What was the name of this module on the store you said?
It's called Revolution.
Thanks.
It just saves a lot of time instead of like when you get it made, it's made as a custom app if you want the push notifications. Yeah, that one. So yeah, if you want, it's the push notification is where they're going to do the more custom development.
Great, thanks for that recommendation. And again, if you, it's an open floor. If you're willing to show any part of your application, I think this group would really.
I've got touch swipe tabs.
Nice.
That was one thing that we've made.
All right. Okay, with that, let's call this a completed episode of Low Code Campfire, and we will get together again next Friday, 10 a.m. Central. Thank you guys for getting up early or staying up late with us, and we will see you next time. Hang around for a few minutes if you'd like. We'll go into our Afterglow segment. All right, it's been a good hour. Thanks all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.